Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Super Mario 64. In the last part, we continued up here on the second floor of stages, and now we're in Tiny Huge Island taking care of our second mission in here. The tip top of Tiny Huge Island, get this, requires us to get to the tip top of Tiny Huge Island. There's a couple routes you can use to do this. I like to start with the island small and Mario large, and then get about halfway up and then enter this next pipe coming up here. Because you do actively have to have the island be big and Mario be small in order to get the star here. There is something you can do at the very top of the island with the island small and Mario big, but you can't get the star in question unless Mario is small and the island is big. Or I guess technically speaking, it might just be the island itself growing or shrinking in size via the pipe. Mario might technically be the same size, and I don't doubt that's actually how it's being handled internally. Just that the perspective and all that really matters a lot. Right about here is an item block, and thus contains our star. I like this level a lot. I think its mechanic is generally just pretty full of joy. Although I, for the life of me, can't tell why the Tiny Huge Land in Mario 3 made the impact it did to make this happen and then other mechanics like it happen. I think I've just never been too attached to the idea myself. I think the closest I've been to, like, loving an idea like this was actually the one level in Astrobot, because that was so full of joy, but then again, so was that entire game. I still need to go back and get some of the extra bots they patched in for, like, the holiday stuff. I think, like, Croc's in there or something like that. So Mission 3 is a rematch with Koopa the Quick. The character we haven't seen since all the way back in Bob-Omb Battlefield is back, but we do need to actually find him first. He's just around this bend, but you can only talk to him while the island is large. And rematch is correct, but he definitely brings his A game this time around, even if it's ultimately a shorter run as well. Ow. I'll be back soon. I'm out training now, so come back later. Koopa the Quick. He's very nonplussed by the fact I was reading that instead of talking to him. Long time no see. Wow, have you gotten fast? Have you been training on the sly, or is it the power of the stars? I've been feeling down about losing the last race. This is my home course. How about a rematch? The goal's in Windswept Valley. So for this, we need to effectively round the next 3 corners and end up on the opposite side of where we are at the moment on the island. Long jumping here and hugging the interior is really useful because there's not really a way to cheat in this specific level. Koopa the Quick is much faster, you're going a shorter distance, and there's no real way you can bullshit around things, and this wind really does not help. As you can see, much tighter timing. No way! You beat me again! I just spent my entire savings on these new Koopa Mach 1 sprint shoes. Here, I guess I have to hand over the star to the winner of the race. Congrats, Mario. And that's the 2 stars he has. We will never see him again. I don't think they give him another star in DS, even though they do some pretty out there cameos in some of the other stars. Honestly, thinking about it, I can't help but wonder if some of the energy they used for, like, the new stars in DS are kind of the energy they wanted to approach Mario Galaxy 2 and, to an extent, like 3D World and Land in, and that's why they feel so different than the stars in the base game. 5 itty-bitty spirits. These are secrets that are located across the small version of the island that you just need to walk over certain places with. If you've been keeping an eye on the island's layout thus far and noticing certain landmarks, you might have a good idea about where some of them are, but that's just it. It's a good idea. One of the 5 secrets in specific troubled me for so long because I just couldn't figure it out. Largely, you're looking for holes across the small version of the island, like the hole the cannonballs come out of, one right here at the top by ground pounding, one right on the other side of the wall we spawn in at, but also one right over there in the wall that little wooden bridge is connected to. That's one that took me a while to figure out because it was just such a small thing for me to notice on the screen. And the final one is where the cannon's located at the corner of the island right over here. While we're right here, by the way, I would recommend talking to the Bob-Omb buddy, because I don't think I do for a little bit still. Talking to him and unlocking the cannon now will save you a little time in later missions, so you might as well, you know. The star itself spawns on an island just in the distance in the sky, but you do need to use the pressure switch we've stepped on a couple times already in this level, even in this video, to actually reach. I don't think that you can make like a long jump from the top of the island to make it there. I think it's just far enough away that you do need to actually use the switch. Also, I don't think one's ever on screen long enough to make a real note of otherwise, but be careful in the water in this level while the island is large. There's a fish in the water there known as a Bubba or a Cheap Chomp, depending on the variation of that specific enemy. Some people also might know them as Boss Basses or Big Berthas, depending on how wrong they are in the individual case. They are an instant kill fish. They eat you whole and swallow you alive. Stay out of the water as best you can, but that said, they're also slow enough where they're not going to really have a chance to catch up. They really only try to go after you, I believe, if you're far out in the distance. So the final two missions here in Tiny Huge Island's main count both rely on investigating the cave at the center of the mountain here in the center of the level. There's two entrances to it. We've seen them both through the 5 Secrets mission. There's one at the end of the wooden bridge just above me, and then there's one you need to actively ground pound the top of the mountain of when the island is small to get to. For the first mission here, we want to go to the one that's across the wooden bridge and be careful of the Koopa shell momentum, almost sending us off the ledge. I completely forgot he ran on screen like that. Yeah, if you take a Koopa's shell but don't kill them, they do run around like that, trying to outrun you. And if you're playing along, you've probably already done it yourself, and you've probably seen me do in the LP otherwise. Killing a Koopa while they're like that, you get a blue coin. Welcome to the lower part of the internal part of the mountain. This is our 8 red coin mission, and all 8 red coins are in pretty self-explanatory spots. There's no real hidden bullshit here. You might have to do some wall jumps to get to that one in the distance, but you can also just use the ceiling above us. That's a grate, and jump up to that, I believe, to get over there. Not too bad. There is a bottomless pit below us, so it is an instant kill if you fail at this in some form and miss a jump, but the jumps here are comfortable enough where that's never really a large issue in my experience. And then we'll just have 5 stars down and 1 to go. And well, we can see the area we need to get to for the 6th one directly above us right now because of a certain worm that's squiggling around. By the way, I personally recommend getting this red coin last. Mind you, with the path that the rocks takes you on, it's effectively going to be the last most times anyway. But the star marker is literally right below me right now, so it's just a pretty handy one to grab last. The ceiling being the easiest way to reach this coin as well really helps that, barring doing some certain wall jumps that you might not even feel like doing. 5 stars down, 1 to go here, not counting the 100 coin star. And, well, like I said, we gotta return back to that cave, but from the top to reach the next one for our mini-boss for this specific world. I guess technically it is a boss fight because it's only fought in the area, but in my head, this game only really has the Bowser fights as proper boss fights. Make Wiggler squirm. Like I've already said, to access the Wiggler fight, we need to actively make our way back to the top of that room, and the way we do that is come into the level while the island is small, and then go ground pound the top of the mountain. That'll drain the water from there, and create a hole that you can then fall through. And thankfully, because the island, while it's small, is, well, get this, small, platforming up there doesn't take that long at all. In fact, I think there's technically some places you can make some pretty good triple jumps and just completely skip some steps. Just be careful around this bridge, as it's thin enough where if you mess up and climb that wall slightly, you're gonna slide down and probably have to climb back up, which doesn't take too long, but it's kind of annoying. Also, there's not many jumps in this game that I just consistently have issues doing, even when they're pretty straightforward ones. But I don't know why. I have consistent problems trying to get up to this platform. They don't usually take me longer than like 10 seconds, but it usually takes me enough tries where I'm like, come on now, what's going on? Like, jumps that actually cause me issues are like the one to get the star in the waterfall in Tall Mountain, certain long jump or wall jumps if we're trying to be a little tricksy and things like that, but that's just a straightforward one that I've always had problems with. Right past the star we got earlier in this world, at the top of the mountain now that's been ground pounded, is the hole that allows us to reach our mini-boss.
Ah, you flooded my house. Why? Look at this mess. What am I going to do now? The ceiling's ruined, the floor is soaked. What to do, what to do? It makes me so mad. Everything's been going wrong ever since I got this star. It's so shiny, but it makes me feel strange.
Wiggler's a very easy boss. You jump on his head several times and he goes down, but you do have a line of dialogue between every single hit.
I can't take this anymore. First you get me all wet, then you stomp on me. Now I'm really, really, really mad. Ah!
He does roam around at various speeds, but his angles of movement are so wide it's very easy to avoid him.
Hey, knock it off. That's the second time you've nailed me. Now you're asking for a linguini breath.
He does jump over here or there as well, but again, probably easiest mini-boss in the game.
Ouch, uncle, okay, I give. Take this star. Huh, I feel better now. I really don't need it anymore anyway. I can see the stars through my ceiling at night. They make me feel peaceful. Please come back and visit anytime.
Also, what floor? You live on top of a iron fence. There's not really a solid floor here to be ruined by the water. I mean, I guess maybe it would get rusty? Eh? We're almost done with Tiny Huge Island. We got one more star to get in there with the 100 coin mission, of course. But I almost actively decided to do the 100 coin mission during the previous mission. I decided against that, ultimately, just because the setup that getting to Wiggler requires is just out of the way enough coin-wise that I didn't want to do it. One of the most immediate pieces of advice I can give for this 100 coin mission is to ground pound the Goombas when the island is large, so when they're larger than you. As when you kill them like that, they drop a blue coin. If you kill them just by jumping on them, though, they only drop a yellow coin. And with the amount of Goombas that are on this stage when it's large, you can make a pretty good amount of bank from that alone. You can also run around the post near the start of the level to have, I think, about 5 coins spawn in. But some scary sections of this level still exist as the large island, especially when you're around here near the wind, as it's just super easy to accidentally miss a jump there and fall into the bottomless pit. Also, you're going to want to have the cannon active for this specific mission, as there's extra Goombas you can access on higher levels that are just easier to access with the cannon than by falling from near the top of the mountain or things like that. Take advantage of the coins from the 8 red coin area as well, on top of the blue coin switch being in there, because otherwise you might have to roam about the island more when it's large or small to find excess coins that just aren't as worth it in the long run. And there we go. With Tiny Huge Island now complete, we've entirely cleaned up this tier of levels. The floor where this, Snowman's Land, and the other 2 levels are is completely finished. Thus, we can return to the castle and climb even further upstairs to our final set of main courses. Notably, to do so, there is another star door in the way, and if I recall correctly, that one requires 50 stars to open, which, well, we're over double that now, so we've really done a good job of finding things along the way. And beyond that, there's only really one more star door, and that's only requires 70 stars, which, again, you could already do at this point if you've been following along this LP, so you can go finish the game if you want to. Notably, though, this tier of levels is overall the smallest, as there's only actually 2 main courses here, as well as a couple of hidden stars. Speaking of which, hello, final toad in the game, really? There's something strange about that clock. As you jump inside, watch the position of the big hand. Oh, look what I found. Here, Mario, catch. And thus we get our final toad-supplied star as well. I think some of the toad-supplied stars are some of the ones that took me the longest to find the game, because I just didn't see them in some cases, because they are kind of hidden around corners in some cases. But ultimately, they're pretty easy to find as long as you actually look around the area properly. So this star door is a little interesting in that I think you can enter it even before you have 70 stars, but beyond it lies the infinite staircase that one piece of dialogue was talking about earlier. Until you have 70 stars, you can't access the final level because of that. Our next painting world, though, is the clock itself, and Toad mentioned the big hand here for a reason. It actively is the level's gimmick for Tick-Tock Clock. Why? Depending on which multiple of 3 the big hand is near, rounded to the nearest one, the speed of the level's internal mechanics change. Because we entered near the 12 o'clock spot, everything in here is completely paused. Platforms don't rise or lower, these blocks don't rotate, the pendulums don't swing, all that jazz, which makes it a very easy jaunt up for the first star. If you enter while the big hand is near the 3, everything's moving, but it's relatively slow. It's probably the safest space for the level overall. At 6 o'clock, things are incredibly random. They'll kind of jut back and forth between speeds, and it's kind of unpredictable, but it does make for an interesting playthrough, I'll give it that. Meanwhile, if you enter at 9, everything moves surprisingly quickly to the point where it can be kind of overwhelming. I think for this playthrough, I tend to enter between noon and 6 more often than not, but ultimately it really is just depending on what you want to do. If you're going for a challenge run, 9 can be helpful. There's also places where having it at 9 does make the missions go a little bit more quickly, admittedly. For our second mission, I recommend entering with either the speed at 6 or 3, as you do need the mechanics to move to actually access the star, but having it move slower will mean it's a little easier to get adjusted to if you entered with the previous mission being paused. Tick-Tock Clock, though, is probably one of my least favorite levels of the game. Not that it's a bad level. I think the missions here are cool. I just dislike its setup platforming-wise, as in order to basically reach any given star in here, you need to platform upwards of half the level over and over again the same way, and I just don't find that too interesting. It's the same thing with, like, Dire Docks, where you need to swim through that one tunnel over and over again to get to the submarine area for a lot of the stars. If this level was a slightly wider circle that you could do a couple more pads through, I probably would like it a lot more. Because that level of repetition for all the stars does start to grind on you after a while. Also worth noting, this level is inherently very dangerous, of course, because even below the starting point, there's just a constant bottomless pit. They do give you nice solid platforms pretty frequently to act as barriers in the case you fall, but if you fall too far, this level can get costly pretty quick. Plus, even then, falling too far when you're not falling into the pit can be really annoying because you just lost potentially upwards of 2 minutes of progress. This level's rough in that regard. In fact, in some regards, it actually reminds me of the clock towers from Castlevania, and that it's one of my least favorite parts of the game. Which, you know, I guess in that regard, if I had a nickel for every N64 platformer with major collectathon elements that has a clock or time-themed near endgame level that I greatly dislike, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot. But weird that it happened with both this and Banjo-Kazooie. Albeit if I had a choice, I would rather play Tick-Tock Clock than Click-Clock Wood. But that's largely because getting 100% in Click-Clock Wood is a lot scarier, given the scale of that world. At least in the N64 release. Technically speaking, the later Xbox releases do fix one of the major issues with that, but I'm still not the biggest fan of the amount of setup that level has. Weirdly foreshadowing to my dislikes of Stewie's structure. Oh god. When you enter when the mechanics are a lot faster, sometimes the unpredictability of it, especially on the 6 setting, can be pretty hard to deal with, especially when it comes to how quarters interact with Mario like that. But it's overall not too bad. So, for this mission, we need to get to that star over there, which requires being on this clock hand. And you can see right here a good indication of what 6 does mechanically when it comes to random speeds, where there's times it'll move pretty slowly, at a decent pace, very quickly, and there's even times where it can backtrack a couple of ticks. In this regard, this is a level we're entering, this is a mission rather, we're entering this level with the setting at 9 would be preferred because it would move so much more quickly. But it does make for a good showcase of the different states. I actually don't remember though if we ever enter the level at 9 itself. I don't think we do. I think I just know inherently to generally avoid that because it makes platforming up here, even to this extent, really annoying. With that said, I believe if I'm remembering correctly, once I jump onto the hand, I do speed up the footage just to get across the way. Because I think it took upwards of like 45 seconds to get across, and that's just 45 seconds of me standing still with nothing really happening as we wait. So just for your sake, I feel like it's the best thing to do for the video. And now we're already about halfway through, I almost said Click-Clock Wood, Tick-Tock Clock's stars. And we're on to probably the hardest one in my experience, outside of the 100 coin mission actively, because I do think this world has the hardest 100 coins. Time for Stomp the Thwomp. For this, we need to get all the way to the top of the level. So in that regard, I'd recommend entering with the mechanics at 3, just so they move slowly. I think you can get up there when the mechanics are at 12, so they're completely stopped. But you need to make some pretty precise wall jumps and triple jumps to do so, so having them move just for the occasional elevator matters a pretty good bit, I'd say, on a first playthrough especially. With that said, and I am getting a bit ahead of myself here, I do find the setup of this course and the next one to be a bit interesting, because they're sort of the final challenges of the game's 2 main level design types. Tick-Tock Clock here is the final and most challenging linear direct platforming course that you just have to go through several times to get every star. And the next course is the most dangerous open level design that you can make different paths through using your platforming skills and all that. And honestly, I think that's really strong design sense. I just wish the levels weren't annoying to me specifically, because both levels in one regard have something that I just don't find very entertaining to do, especially in a 3D platformer. And it's more egregious in the second course than this one, admittedly. But I'll talk more about that when we reach the next course. This section right here is another place where I just constantly have issues making simple jumps. And I think it's largely because I kind of overcomplicate the jumps I'm trying to do. Like, a standard jump is more than enough to make it from one of these spinning blocks to the other, but I constantly try to do side hops or double jumps because I think it's going to be more efficient, and it never is. I think that's just on me trying to either be stylish or really overcomplicating it because I'm used to doing so in other platformers and trying to get away with fancy stuff. Now, we're coming up on the top of the clock here, but make sure you don't rush this because it's very easy to slide on these platforms that rotate, or over time, these rotating triangles here. And falling down here is pretty costly on the time method, especially when you just barely miss like that. Okay, oh no! That wasn't so, oh no. Yeah, I'm just gonna jump cut past that to save you some time, because that was like a 2-minute backtrack. That's why I really don't like Tick-Tock Clock, ultimately, is things like that and the waiting like this on this clock hand. There's the thwomp the mission is named for. The star lies on a platform above it and behind it, so we need to get on top of the thwomp to grab it. With that said, you do need to make at least a double jump on this conveyor belt to get to the top of the thwomp, and depending on how good you've been about doing the double or triple jump so far, that jump I could see causing some problems. Thankfully, they don't make you backtrack all the way if you mess up that jump in specific. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 12, we're gonna finish off Tick-Tock Clock before heading on to the last main course in the game. See you guys then.